Hello there, everybody. My name is Jenna O'Malley. I'm your soul writer, author of sci-fi fantasy with dashes of romance and nerdy references, and welcome back to an edited chapter with me. Well, switch that. Welcome back to a Soul Bard workshop, an edit with me chapter edition. I know that I have the So You Want to Be an Author Tuber classes going on Tuesdays right now, so I wanted to do something on Sundays on occasion. Not every single Sunday, just on occasion between now and when we get into talking Preptober things in October. And I figured everyone just finished July Camp NaNoWriMo. Why not give you a chance to ask an editor any questions you might have? We did that a couple of months ago. Some people had some really good questions and feedback. I know some people were cycling in and out. This was put up last moment. So I figured, why not combine it with something else I kind of promised earlier this year and live edit with me. So I will go ahead and switch out to a chapter from book 3, Bound by Vengeance in Mind, a chapter that has yet to be seen of the current published versions. So I do see that Cool Gamers there in chat. Hello, my friend. And the Cheesecake Man stopped on in to say hello as well. So if you have any questions, while we're going through this chapter, don't hesitate to ask. Anything you're curious about regarding editing, revising, so on and so forth are welcome. Hello, Felicia. It's great to see you. Thank you for stopping on in. So I'm going to go ahead and switch things around and pull up chapter 2 of my third book. Again, while we're working through, I'll be checking for comments, questions. If you have any about anything related to revising, editing, proofreading, I'll even entertain beta reading, ARC questions, like anything on the back end after you've finished your draft kind of questions today. And we'll look through chapter 2. We probably will be here until about 1:30. Maybe a little after is my goal. Keep it short, keep it simple today. So I'll go ahead and get started while you're settling on in and asking any questions you may have. So chapter 2, you ripped his bloody arm off, and I might modify some stuff on screen. So if I read it aloud or skip it, it means for reasons. Ian muttered. Quite literally, Hatami raised an eyebrow, and on purpose, Vivri added. Pardonnez-moi, not sorry. So this is something that I'm debating about actually removing from this series. I have 2 characters in particular. Frey, who is French. Maria, who is like Castilian from Spain, Spanish. And they will, on occasion, switch common phrases. And I mean, I know plenty of people who do it for emphasis sake, and he's trying to emphasize something here, so I need to see if that's lines even needed. Some people say you shouldn't, if it's not your primary language or not your language, you shouldn't include it, and I'm just a lover of language. Maybe that's coming through too far. Hey, Rita, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. We're kind of listening to my brain juice go through some edits in between me answering any questions. Hello there, Elizabeth. You might have about editing or revising. Anything that happens after finishing your draft. This was a question that was asked of me earlier. Why do I include other language? It just so happens I have 2 characters, Frey and Maria, who slip in French or Spanish appropriately. I'm wondering if I should keep it or let it go, and how big of a fix that'll be, because I would have to go all the way back to book 1 at this point, edit it. We'll see. So Frey asked with a grin, flashing his fangs. Being crazed in the post-haze of battle felt wonderful, even if it made his eyes burn and itch. He blinked, willing their crimson state to heal. That's too floral. He blinked. So So this is a reminder from a previous book. Frey has, I can show you here on the overlay what I mean a little bit easier. There you are, buddy. So I have a character named Frey. He's the dude with silvery hair here. And whenever the fallen angel that lives in his head, Ezekiel, shows up, one of his eyes turns that reddish color. So I'm trying to decide how much do I need to allude to this because it comes up again and again. I like to edit with different colors. I have dark mode on my windows, by the way. If you're wondering, how is that color? I have dark mode on because bad eyes. Whenever I want to check something as far as do I overdo it, I like to give it a different highlight color. So purple's normally... Jenna, come back and check this on your next read-through color for me. Ian complained. And again, any questions you have while we're going along can be about your own project even. Let me know. That doesn't justify you bringing it along as a trophy. Is that comma right? Yes, this comma is going to be correct because it's what for emphasis, and I gotta take this out. A reminder of one of my favorite things to do is the control find function, control F function. I'm going to, yes, we can hear you, Loki, singing the song of your people. I want to take out all of the character names for the code names of each of my characters. I haven't done that in book 3 yet. It's the only book left where I have to do that. If you read the original version of books 1 and 2, you know that they had like a name everyone called them and then a code name in battle. And some people were like, the code name in battle is too much. Hello there, Sam. It's good to see you. It's good to see you. So if you have any questions about anything editing while I'm going along and kind of spitballing my own editing brain juice process while we edit a chapter together, feel welcome. You could tell me if it's something about, for your own project, things of that nature. So yeah, thankfully they don't call Ian Thunder Britches that many times. I know Frey went by Turin, and it's his book, so of course he's going to have the most. Who else do I need to check for? Keely Kale would be Lee, and she only comes up, not including it landing in the middle of the word scales a couple of times. So I'll go ahead and remind myself later on a sticky note then that I need to do the code name swap out still. I thought I did that already. Code name. How long will that take me? I have a cast of about 20 plus characters. It'll take me about an hour's worth of sprints. Hello there, my friends. It's good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Ty is here. And Mama Maggie is here. Glad to have you here. If you have any questions about editing, about revising while we're editing through one of my own chapters, let me know. It can be about your own work. Felicia, how many POVs are there total through all of my 5 books? There's Book 1's a little weird because it's your intro into the world. It's 95% 2 characters with introing some others that you encounter in subsequent books. In books 2 onward, we've already established everybody. So it's supposed to be 5 POVs. I have 2 couples at a time. Ian and Neftiri are always, they're the ones on the front cover. They're always the part of that. And then there's Arya, the Fairy King. He's Neftiri's former betrothed. You can imagine why he's one of the POVs. And then we have a couple that switches out, starting in book 2 for every book. So that's where the 4th and 5th POV come from. Book 3 is going to be the 3 who are in every book: Neftiri, Ian, Arya, And then specifically the people who were on the banner overlay, we have Lee, who would be on the left, and then Frey, who would be in between. Good question. How many POVs should you have in a story? That's up for contention. Traditionally, we like things in powers of 3, 5, hello Molly Moo singing the Song of Your People, and 7. Religious context aside, that just seems to be also even like boy bands that do well tend to be 5 members. K-pop performance groups, J-pop performance groups that tend to do well, 3, 5, and 7. Those numbers come up again, unless you're Morning Matsumune and you go as high as 12. So those options are out there. Anything in between. I want to say Sarah Cannon, our leader over at Heart Breathings for our writing community, I think her book 12 said it had like 6, 8 POVs, but she had a whole series lead up to it, so it makes sense, right? Elizabeth is in the developmental editing for your novel. How do you best balance writing a new draft, aka a rewrite? It's technically a new draft for some people, and the prose, so you can make line editing easier later on. Well, you have a couple of different processes going on here at once. This is why I say everyone needs to read through their own work more than one time before it comes to even a beta reader or an editor. Okay, so how do you best balance writing a new draft, aka that rewrite? Well, you have draft 0. That's your manuscript draft, right? That's what a lot of us call draft 0. It's the one that I just was the recorder for the reporting in the field on and nothing more, if you will. And then you want to rewrite that. You need to go through it and reread it from beginning to end, no editing. Do what we call in English ELA land a close read, a close cold read. I'm just going to read through it. I might take some notes. I'm not going to change anything. On that second time through is when you get through a revision, and some of us who write 120,000 word plus novels, the first 0 draft, will admit it takes a long time, but what you need to then focus on is plot holes. So that should be your biggie thing to really focus on first. Does my plot meet what my characters need to do? And do my characters, not just their actions, but their internal monologues, their dialogues with others, also do the other end of the equation? You're kind of checking, are those in balance with your first rewrite? Big time, okay? Then you start worrying about the grammar. In English, when we teach this stuff in K-12, we're taught to think of it as higher order processes of concerns versus lower order process of concerns. So your higher order of processes are going to be character development, plot development, organization. If you do not have all of those high-end concerns under control, don't even worry about line editing yet. You're nowhere near worried about the lower-end concerns, that the grammar, the spell checks, the how can we word this shorter comes into play, okay? So it is very difficult to read it and not revise it. It is an undeveloped skill that I noticed a lot of people are not enticed to focus on, because many of us live in a society that is produce. You gotta hit that huge long backlist before you can even think about making money, right? And some of that feeds into, I don't want to say it's cutting corners, but if you think you can get away with only, to use a baseball term here, barely tapping your foot on the base to make it count versus actually, full foot contact. It comes into that kind of, did you actually do it because you needed it, or did you skip it, and were you okay to clear that skipping? You're welcome, my friend. You're welcome. I was going to say, yeah, I thought you had a couple, Mama Maggie, that were much longer. And Yes, I actually, do you have videos on your process? If not, please, we would love that. We would love that. Be a good course. Just saying, Mama Maggie, just saying. Molly Moo's a screaming and a singing. She doesn't do metal. That's Swizzle. Anyway, so Dreaming Truth, super hard for you too. It's a skill. It's a skill, guys. So, and I'm saying this as someone who taught it to middle schoolers and high schoolers. I know you get like 2 classes to do peer revision and self-revision in school, and they really don't teach you what to do. Let's all get real. Most of our grade school experiences with peer revision is here. Read this. Sit there and talk for 20 minutes. Oh, let me grab my pen and write down that you did good and get our easy A grade for the day. Unfortunately, for those of us who genuinely want to be writers, that's not beneficial, right? And we never developed that skill. So take the time. Add in an extra read through. It might cost you a day while you're cleaning your house, mind you. Because what I do is I go into good old review tab, read aloud, and I will have it play to me while I'm cleaning my own work. Okay, so that if you're not using a document processor that has that function, both Google Docs, which is free as long as you have a Gmail account, and then of course Microsoft Word will let you do that for your own work. Yeah, makes sense. You started to get too focused on what the words look like. It's too early to worry about that. I am far past that with this draft. With this draft you guys are seeing on screen, I have already done one read through. So I've caught the glaring organization mistakes, and I have notes of where I need to do a scene rewrite through this revision. I have those notes of what needs done, right? So that's why I say take notes, then go back through it a little bit. Still working on your first novel. It's your sandbox, right? It's your sandbox. So you do need to remind you that you're learning. And that's kind of what these first 3 books were for me. They were legit a sandbox I stayed in for 3 books. Why? Writing a series, you are in that sandbox for a couple books longer. Keep that in mind if you're doing a series. Rita, in one of your current novels, it has 2 POVs and then you added more. See, the series is growing. And I know for you, you have like this setup where it is natural for it to grow, kind of like a camp or a school or an academy, like design of a novel for all those genres that use those things. It's natural for people to come and go. That's why TV shows like Welcome Back Kotter for Mr. Kotter and Boy Meets World, the settings that were at school, it made sense to have characters come and go because that's part of the life of that building. Google Docs and liking it so you don't have to concern yourself with saving. Word actually has an autosave feature now. They added it, I want to say, within the last 2 years, and I still find myself clicking Control S as in save on my keyboard. So Mama Maggie, yeah, Grammarly plugin is great. What I love, I don't rely on them solely, mind you. I think that even, the spell check that's built into Google and that's built into Word, keep in mind, some of it relies on you knowing how to use your own language, depending on what your error is. Like if it's confusing your word as an adjective clause versus an adverb clause. If you don't know what the difference is, you're going to pick the wrong grammar option. One requires a comma, one does not. That's the difference. And sometimes Word would be like, I know it's one, but I don't know which one it is, and you're the human, so you got to pick. You wrote the sentence. So those are the moments where I'm like, Google it. What's an adverbial clause? There's tons of videos on YouTube. Not Schoolhouse Rock, but that will help on that. This novel is 1 book long. A series of at least 8 books. Book 2. Book 3 was originally supposed to be the last book in this series. It's now a 5-book series with 1 of 3 seasons. Let me get my numbers right there. So, yeah. Want to know why? because I oversaw what a character disappearing, Frey, the one who's in control of the POV here. I didn't foresee what would happen when he would disappear for 6 weeks, and I didn't realize he was going to disappear for 6 weeks in the middle of book 2. He wasn't really gone for 6 weeks. The realm he disappeared to for 6 weeks our time was 3 years his time, and that's a whole spin-off novel. Thanks, Frey. Anyway, you did a rewrite, and yeah, it's easily, this is why we say write a book that you're going to enjoy, or write a genre or a topic or themes or characters you love and adore. Now, mind you, I have characters I can't stand. Book 2, Bjorn. Ugh. Anyway, he don't like being in my head, and I don't like being in his, and it's apparent. But you still should write something about it that you love and adore, because you're going to be rereading it at least 5 to 10 times. Fair warning. I think all authors should read their books 5 to 10 times before it even goes to beta readers and or editors. So if you haven't done that, give it one more read through. Give it another day. Yeah, you're an underwriter, which you do appreciate. It's profit in your favor. Those of us who are overwriters, literally, we are pinching pennies with playing with word games to make these shorter. For example, this paragraph here, I have literally been nicking words out of it for weeks because it was 3 to 4 times its length. It's 72 words now. It was 3 to 4 times its length to say the same thing. I'm an overwriter of like the J.R. Tolkien variety, and yeah, it goes into my profit hard. But on the other side of the coin, you've got to fight white room syndrome a little bit for some underwriters. Like, people, your readers might not realize that they're in the throne room versus in the armory. They might not realize that transition has happened, and because you didn't breadcrumb them a clue, right? So you kind of have the opposite end of the issue than we would. Elizabeth, you tend to get, this is the other thing, and what do we say about perfectionism? It is a poison. Stop putting it in your Kool-Aid, your coffee, your tea, your matcha, your water, whatever, because you don't deserve to treat yourself like that. Really what you're doing with perfectionism, and this totally clicked in my head like within the last 3 months. I forget who said this to me, but somebody said, you know that perfectionism is basically you replacing all of your bullies as the bully to your inner child. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I did what? Yeah. Your perfectionism is literally your inner child still being bullied, but this time the bully is your adult mind. Oh, so stop drinking the poison you're putting in your Kool-Aid, honey. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. And this is why you don't deserve it. Enjoy it, right? Editing sucks. I'm an editor. I hate editing my own work. Let me get it out there. I will always prefer hiring an editor for my own work. 1, I'm not perfect. 2, I don't want to be perfect. And 3, I still want to enjoy my own work. So I shouldn't want to rip it apart. Let somebody else do that. And this is a good point. Word games, and I should really cut that scene then immediately and put it back together. Yes. We end up with so much, quote, as a director might say for a movie, on the cutting room floor, right? Right. Yeah, good point. Oh, wow. Yeah. You're not close to being there. That's the powerful word, that 3-letter Y-E-T. If you don't know, look up what neuroscience says about the word yet. And then you should probably take a sticker and put it on your screen, because you're literally retraining your brain to be more open-minded, elastic. So, for this paragraph, since it's been bugging me, let's work on it a little bit. Keep putting your questions below. They're really good so far. So it inspired Frey firsthand as a leader of the Radiers, both are appropriate. He saw Ian and Bovary excel. I have a note here from my read-through. Excel at what? Excel as warriors and I think I cut too much out of this paragraph. Here I am adding, and I need to take away, right? He saw Ian and Bovary excel as warriors and... I don't want to say leaders again. I'll just make that too. Like Harumi, Frey struggled to rely on, I know a few key can come out, on key skills. They maximize their experiences. We assume they're in battle because we're talking about warriors now. Hey, that and warriors might have actually taken a lot of issues away. And she convinced him to read with, I can just say their insistence because we're talking about all the siblings. Bacteria's training exhausted his sleep multiple days a week, in person or afar, passing through shadow. Oh. Imparting his realm walking skills to other Merna 8 chunks of his waking hour. So what I did here was I realized I had a phrase that was, that whole first phrase I deleted was not adding any meaning to the core idea of the sentence. So I just cut it. That is the number one way I think that overwriters can really, really trim down words. Better be lower than 72. Hey, 65. 65. That's much better. I'll take that. I like to keep my paragraphs short, sweet, to the point, or I'll meander. And overwriters, if it doesn't connect to something important, like telling you the setting is changing, like it doesn't come up later in the plot, even if later in the plot is 2 paragraphs later, do you really need it? So overwriters, that might be a way to kind of start dissecting, you know, do I need to tell everybody's eye color? No. Do I need to tell everybody's hair color? No. Because eventually, after mentioning about 12 colors, the brain's going to go, we've hit the rainbow. What are we going to do? Repeat the rainbow? Keep that in mind. Your main characters that are your primary characters, you could mention what they look like. You don't have to. Some writers choose to do that. And then I would say, like, your secondary characters who are primary secondaries. And for example, Harry Potter's a primary character. The primary secondary characters, the most important secondary characters, would be Hermione and Ron. Because a lot of the plot don't happen without Hermione and Ron, right? So keep that in mind as well. You probably want to know their hair colors and eye colors, but somebody who shows up for 2 scenes, you might not care. It's okay to be on that same page for sure. Finally, with Lear Book 1. Yes! Congratulations indeed. Major revisions. That would probably be those higher end processes, right? The outline is solid and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and start asking for final questions, since you got to see me plug and chug through a little bit of how I edit on my own. Let me swap out there. And you got to see what an editor's brain might look like and hear it somewhat out loud. How many beta readers do you think is enough? I would say always ask for more than you actually need. So don't make it a hard 5. Make it more like ask 5 to 10 and hope 5 answer. Because a lot of the time, and I think this is why some people charge to be a beta reader. That's a whole nother debate I'm not going to get into today, because I will have a live on beta readers and whatnot where you can ask me questions on them here in the near future. That might be our next workshop, actually, now that I think about it, at the end of the month or end of September. So I would say shoot for a handful. If you want a handful, ask 2 hands full. You want at least 2 other people to read it. I know as a new author, it can be very difficult to find people to trust. And therefore, you should let them know, A, what your deadlines and guidelines are. And you can have guidelines that are actually written as guiding questions, okay? I at least like to ask, who's your favorite character? What was your favorite scene? which scene would you cut, which character didn't you like and why, and sometimes you get told, I didn't like this character, therefore I love them, believe it or not, if you had a good villain or things of that nature. So I would definitely research what other people in your genre are doing for beta readers. I know for me, I do sci-fi, fantasy, romance. That's the huge overlapping category, and all my novels fit in those umbrellas. In some way, shape, or form. So I pay close attention to not only what they do and don't do for form questions. Keep it just to a couple of questions because you don't want it to be homework, but you want people to know what they're getting into and what you need. Okay. Keep it open form, definitely as well. I would say get prepared to do a lot of swapping if you plan on not paying your beta readers. My Inka York is an amazing beta reader who's quite busy all the time. She like beta reads for everybody. So maybe ask her like their process if you see them in chats. I know Rachel D. Adams does a lot of beta reading, or at least I hear Michael Don Brooks does as well. Ask them, like, as a beta reader, how many do you think I should have of you? Because they might have a different response than me as an editor. You see what I mean? But at least a handful. You want at least a couple of different sets of eyes on your work. I apologize for the long rambling from time to time. We're having tiny issues with extended delays in comments coming through on StreamYard at the moment. One thing Elizabeth tends to do sometimes is overwrite internal. See, you're taking notes for you the first time through, and this is the other thing for overwriters, and that's why I say, do we need it? If we don't, do we need to know that they sighed? Bunch of dialogue. Change character, a bunch of dialogue. We probably need a different talk tag. This is what's called a brain default. Some of us overwriters, we see it in our head like it's a movie or some other cinematic form, and we try to track all of that, right? Not always needed for the reader. The reader wants to get in, enjoy the story, get out, right? When writing first person, how do you balance internal dialogue with external stuff? I would, again, if it's not needed, sighing, looking, helping, trying, starting, all of those phrases, if you hit Control F, I forget what it is for Apple, I apologize. I assume Command F for find, I could be wrong, on your keyboard, and just search those words. Some of us who are overwriters have them upwards in the hundreds. We could probably just go through case by case for a sprint and remove them. I've done that. I did that with my first book. My first book, when I originally finished it, was 130,000 words long, and it's now down to half that length. It's 60-some thousand words long. So it's doable. It just takes time. If you're an overwriter, you should start learning how to be an underwriter when you draft, and you should be an overzealous revisionist and editor when you edit until you start balancing that out between the drafting and editing stages. It takes a couple books. My third book, the one I was showing you today, the original draft of it was only 82K, 83K when I pulled it up, and I want to drop 15K from it this edit. That's not bad at all. It was much longer for book one. Internal dialogue is a biggie, and struggling, the shrugging, yeah, these mannerisms, they're mannerisms. They become brain defaults for us as writers, and we rely on them to transition us in and out of climactic moments. If you have one character that has this as a habit, that's okay. Kind of like how in the 80s and 90s, it was really popular to give one or two characters a catchphrase. I'm specifically thinking of Full House. You had 2 or 3 characters that had catchphrases that still today most of us know. How rude! cut it out, right? So, are we leaving those to just one characters? Then also for the shrugging, like how the dad in Full House, he was the hugger. Can we just have someone who's the shrugger by comparison? Yes, you would have to track that in your edit. It is doable. It takes time. Yes, you could ask beta readers to, hey, do I have a character or people do this too much as brain defaults? Are they distracting? You can ask that stuff too. I apologize if my signal suddenly went out. We're having a little bit of wind at the moment. Oh, you would prefer to have beta readers who are familiar with the psychological thriller genre. Sarah mentioned potentially putting together some sort of beta reader tracking thing. So let me find out more on that. I'm not sure if that's just an idea or actually in the works. It was mentioned in the coffee chat she had on Friday. Yeah, I want to say on Friday. Also, if you check around in the Heart Breathings community, I know we have people who write psychological thriller who, if you put like a post up in the Heart Breathings writing community, if you're on the Facebook end of, hey, do you need a beta reader? Do you want to swap? I've seen posts like that up there. And I'll go ahead and put the link to the community for anyone who needs it. And yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. That's why I say when you sit down to revise and edit your own work, it's going to take you 2 or 3 times minimum, probably more, going through your draft, right? You've been told you overwrite with setting. How much is too much? If it's not important, let it go. I am literally the person that would tell you what the color of the draperies on the walls were in Rochelle's house. Mind you, Rochelle's house in book 1, Sancta Terra, is an underground mansion fortress with tons of rooms. It's the only place big enough to house 5 to 7 clans, and covens worth of magical immortal creatures. It's a military base underground. You don't need to describe every room, right? As you go from room to room. Pick a couple key rooms. The ballroom was a biggie. The gardens that grow internally get brought up again and again because they lose them, and the materials. So pick and choose, focus in, and just be general. I mentioned Rochelle has endless gardens 3 times, and I think I get specific that she grows roses in one part of it once. People have remembered it all the way through to the end of book 3. So that's the other thing. This is even catchphrases for some characters, because I want to say there's a couple of things that Stephen King mentions, like in the first book of Dark Tower. Is it Dark Tower? No. Is it Green Mile? No. One of his early series first books, he says a character say something. It's like a 2-line sentence once, and all of us swear that the character says it in every book. No, that's a phenomenon on the reader end. Wait, I love how it doesn't give us some of the emojis from Facebook. I gotta agree with Sarah and Mel. It's fun to see the waving. See, crime thriller and psychological thriller have enough of an overlap to where maybe the genres could share too. Because I write sci-fi, fantasy, romance, but I tend to beta read and edit a lot of people who are only romance, a lot of people who are only sci-fi, or I end up editing a lot for people who write women's fiction, because that's a huge theme in my writing, as well as the importance of women and their voices. So maybe connect on a theme or a setting. If you're not connecting on genre, it helps sometimes, especially if you're talking about a place you never lived, such as me. Inca helped me big time because book 1 takes place in parts of the world I've never been to, Europe. And she was like, this isn't possible here, because that land type ain't there. And I'm like, great. I don't care. It's fantasy. I'm writing it my own way. Slap that fantasy duct tape right on that plot hole, right? You like the details, but you do know that a lot of people don't want to read too many details. And keep in mind, this whole culture of TLDR, too long, don't read, exists now. Thanks to social media, a lot of people do like their books, not necessarily for the book to be short, but the wording to be concise. Not the same thing, right? You can have a long book that is very concise and have a huge amount of plot in it. Keep that in mind. This came up earlier today in Mel's Prince, apoplectic, isn't it? In just about every book. I have my big brain words. If you like using your big brain words, you can take one of two stances on this. Either you can not use them as often and give the people the context clues to mean what they mean, know what they mean rather, or just assume that they'll be like me and read with thesaurus.com on their phone. Anyway, not everyone's me. Rita, you like the details too. Family garden, and you feel it's important ingredients. The reader sees it. Exactly. And that's what it is for the gardens with Rochelle. It comes up like twice, maybe max 3 times how important those ingredients are. So I'm going to assume we are into our final questions. If you have a final question, go ahead and let me know. We're going to wind on down. We were longer than the half an hour, which was great. I would love to do something similar to this again. I probably will do the what you should ask in your beta readers questionnaire, maybe. I want to double check some things Sarah's doing on it first because I don't want to steal her thunder, put it that way. Because what she has is a great idea. If you didn't listen to her coffee chat on her Sarah Cannon channel, go check it out. There you go. But Google the definition as well. Apoplectic, on the verge of having a fit of anger. You yourself feel like you are about to be the center of the apocalypse, is the way I like to tell people with that one. You're the apocalypse. Big brain word, exactly. So thank you everybody for being here today. I am taking editing slots, by the way, as far as like new clients go. There are some links further on up in the chat and in the description box if you want to go ahead and hang out with me for a one-on-one consultation and or more. How many drafts do I write? What did we agree you two were on? 27 because of the rebrand? Yeah, book 1 went through 27 drafts. Kid you not. The only reason why I remember is because together the numbers equaled 9 when added up. So it was either, yeah, it had to have been 27 because I didn't reach 54. It was ridiculous because I rebranded. I rewrote the entire end of the book. That was part of it too. You have a good day as well, my friends. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourselves. I know you're worth it, and I can't wait to possibly hear more and work with you in the future or see you on my sprints and things. Tuesday is going to be episode 2 of So You Want to Be an Author Tuber. If you haven't watched episode 1 yet, it is out along with the workbook and the slides. And above all, take care of yourself. I know you're worth it. Blessings be. Bye.